We are the world. We are recording. We are the world. We are recording. Let's do a couple tests. Test.
Test.
I can see you.
Test.
Do a clap. Sweet. Make sure this video fucking thing is on. It seems good enough.
Yeah.
Look good.
Looks good.
I think we look fucking great.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Discombobulated. I am Bobby Jaycox, and today I have a very, very special guest, truly one of my favorite people in the world. He has an album called Secrets. You have to check it out. You must see him live. He is an absolute must-see. I do love Aaron Brooks so fucking much. This is a very, very special episode. I already said his name. That's a great way to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Brooks, everybody.
The aforementioned.
Yes.
Twice thus far.
I do it so many times. I fuck up the simplest things. It's just like, wait, just say his name, and
How
then I
dare
say
you?
it. I don't know who I am.
For people, this is a little inside baseball. There's like a rhythm to like bringing a comedian on stage.
Yes.
And usually it's, you list you get the audience hype, then you list their credits, and are you ready? And it's
Yes.
And if you like deviate from that, some headliners will get like clearly pissed off.
Yeah. They kind of will, dude. They'll be like, hey man, you need to like bring me but they don't know how to be like, there's no way to be like, you need to bring me up.
Michael Winslow
Yeah.
gave me a slip of paper when I arrived at the club that evening, when I opened for him, when I MC for him.
Yeah.
And on it was a typed out paragraph that I was expected to memorize and repeat to bring him on stage.
Yeah, I had the same thing for Love It's or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
they will write something out and they're like, say this word for word. You
Yeah.
can't cuss.
And it's like, and he was also like, you can't bring the paper. It's like, you want to give me lines? Like,
And you have to memorize it. Yeah.
And I've got to like go do a set in front of, 30 people on a Thursday to watch this guy like beep and boop all over the place.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. And it's like, and you do it. You totally
do
will.
it, yeah.
You totally will. You'll do so many things that you're like, I really don't like want to do it like that, but I totally did. But
I did. I nailed it. I remembered it. I used to be in theater back in high school. I over the course of the next 30 minutes or whatever, I remembered it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they gave it to me right before the show. Or like I was in the hotel and they're like, hey, I gave you lines that you have to like say, bringing out Love It's. And I was like,
dude.
And I didn't, I'm like, dude, I'll do it. But it's also like, you feel silly because you're just like, you're like, what about letting me do mine? I bet mine will be pretty good.
One time, Brian Callen, I hosted for Brian Callen, and he gave me his credits. It was his birthday weekend, right? This was a Cap City. It was his birthday weekend. He brought this lady there with him. I think she did a set at some point throughout the weekend. I don't remember much about her other than she was like, we're going to celebrate Brian's birthday. So this is how it works. She was just there. She did do a set at one point.
Yeah.
But there was another guy who was there featuring. So during the feature set, she and I drove to HEB, famed Texas Grocer, second largest employer in the state behind the government.
God bless.
Run by a family whose last name is Butt. That's a true story. Look it up. And we bought him a cake, and he didn't want us knowing how old he was, which leads me to believe he's older than he is presenting to be.
Yeah.
And I brought him up with the wrong credits. It was either Anchorman 2 or what's the other
Hangover?
one? The Hangover 2.
Yeah.
He was in one of the sequels.
Yeah.
And I said the other one. And when I said the other one, he didn't like really shake my hand, and he just said, if I said Anchorman 2, whichever one he's not in, I still don't know. Is he in The Hangover?
I think so. Yeah.
So we're going to say in this world, he's in The Hangover 2. In this case, I said, you guys ready for it? It's his fucking birthday, Brian Anchorman 2, Brian Callen. And he like slapped my hand. He goes, Anchorman 2, bro?
Oh no.
And I was just like,
you're
my
like,
bad, dude. I'm sorry.
Dude.
I didn't. And he was like, I'm not going to say he was like a prick to me. But we wouldn't have been buds if I would have like not made that mistake. Like that wasn't the thing preventing us from being tight.
Sure. And we've all made mistakes. And like, dude, I did a show once, and the headliner was like, afterwards, I was like, what do you want for your credits? And he was like, almost seemed bothered that I asked him.
Yeah.
And then I got him, and I said I think I said his novel. I think I said that his book was coming out, and he was like,
Oh, gotcha.
it's out. he was like, the thing's out. And then they get upset or whatever, and you're like, oh man, my
He should
bad.
do that every show.
Yeah.
Right? He should have like the MC. He should set that up as a bit.
Yes.
Every show. That way he can like make a big deal out of it. And,
Yeah.
really pump it up.
Yeah, exactly. Pump it up. And it's like, and that's why if people have asked for my credits, and dude, I don't know. Like, I'm always
Nobody
just like,
cares.
I'm that's why I say, I'm like, dude, people, I've said it before. I'm like, dude, just be like, hey, you could say like, open for Chappelle, that gets people's attention, and then say has a special, and they'll be like, okay.
Franklin Chappelle.
Yeah, dude. They'll like they'll be like, guys.
Not Dave.
Yeah.
Different Chappelle.
Yeah, I'm like, just say it quick, do it easy, and then they'll look up the thing, they'll like mess up, they're like, and then they get to it, and they're like, and Bobby J. I'm like, just it's okay if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like, but I don't know. I feel like maybe if you have been at a certain level, you want people to say the right thing.
Sure, I
But
totally
also feel
understand that.
dude. I already talked to him about this too, and we laughed it off. But back in the day, you know Jeff Tate, right?
Yeah.
I've told you this story,
Yeah.
but you were talking about Brian Callen being like, you were just like, yeah, it wasn't cool or whatever.
Right.
But like,
I'm sorry for saying the wrong thing. I apologize.
yeah,
you know?
and it's like that's the thing is like we all make mistakes
My
totally. You know
bad.
what I mean? Like especially if like I'm sure that like when you do like 2 takes, you're not like in trouble. You know what I mean? You're not like, God damn
And
it!
I got it right the rest of the weekend.
You didn't say Fast and Furious
No.
2. You didn't say Too
No.
Fast. He's in Too Fast, Too Furious.
And to my credit, nobody corrected me.
Yeah.
Nobody stood up and was like, "Wait a second, brother.
Yes.
He's in." You know, like
Yes.
because nobody cares.
Right. They
There was a guy in the audience who goes, "Ain't that little fellow from Anchorman 2?" You know,
Yeah.
and I said it, and he turned to his wife and was like, "I told you."
sure.
You know,
Yeah.
but that shit happens all the time, and nobody cares. Are you like a good comic or
Yeah.
not?
People will be like, you've seen this guy on Netflix, and we're like, I was like, come out, and it's like, then that's fun. You're like, no, you haven't.
Man, I did a show in the bar
Yeah.
of a Ramada Inn
Yeah.
in Morgantown, West Virginia.
Yeah.
Worst shows of my life
Yeah.
to that point. I was maybe 2 years in. I drove from St. Louis to Morgantown to bomb in front of like 8 people.
Yeah.
And the host was a very what's his name? Rip Taylor. You know, he was very extravagant, he was a carnival barker. Right?
Yeah.
He told dirty street jokes, and then he brought you up and he was the MC. And he asked for my credits, which like I was like a shitty 2-year comedian from St. Louis, so I had none. I was like,
you're like the Applebee's
I
off
opened for
55.
Pauly
Yeah.
Shore, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh yeah.
I had Pauly Shore in my back pocket.
Yeah.
That Pauly Shore. I'll say this: Pauly Shore pulls a lot of fucking weight.
Oh yeah, dude. Since the 80s, dude.
In like some comedy world,
Yeah.
it's like people who are like, if they book Pauly Shore, he's probably like the biggest act that they're booking.
Oh, yeah.
So when you say like, man, I've worked with Pauly, they're like, all right, this guy might not be a lost cause. you know?
Yeah. Well, you do for sure.
Oh, so I was pulling the Pauly Shore card all
Yeah.
over the place, all across the Rust Belt. And this guy, he said, these people aren't going to know any of this. So he told them I had just gotten off the road with Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, man.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're like, it doesn't matter. People get stuff wrong all the time. It always just like
Yeah.
let's just get to the show.
We used to lie. We used to tell local MCs that I would give them famous book characters' names, and then the other guy that I was with, Dean Chardon, would give them serial killer names.
Yeah,
And the MC would just like, okay, your next comic has opened up for Holden Caulfield, Jay Gatsby, you know, and it's like nobody fucking cares or knows.
No, and there's a lot of people that are just like, some people say lie about it, some people this or whatever, and it's just like at the end of the day, you're just like, you try not to overthink it, and who knows? And maybe you're in a position one day where you do care, but for right now, I'm just like, it doesn't really matter.
I will say, I'll look into the fucking camera when I say this. I regret my mistake with Brian Callen. And if I had the opportunity to do it again, I think I would slow down, and I think I would have, I think if given a second chance, I think I would make it right.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest regrets of my comedy career, and I burned a house down. So, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Brian Callen.
A lot of regrets.
A lot of regrets. Burned a house down. Several people dead.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands of property damage.
Oh my God.
But Brian Callen, I am really, really sorry I didn't say the correct sequel to I guess one would say a genre-defining comedy blockbuster.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Pretty big. Pretty fucking big.
I'm sorry.
For sure.
But not as sorry as the family left behind.
Yeah.
Which was minimal.
Absolutely. Dude, that, whenever I was bringing Jeff Tate, I've told you this story before.
Yeah. This is so funny.
Dude, I have to, just because I was like, and this is like, I fucked up. I'm 100% like I'm wrong. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, I definitely fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I was bringing them up, but they go, Bobby, you're hosting this weekend. I go, cool. And then I go, I don't remember. I mean, I guess they said hosting this weekend. I don't remember why I said it. I don't remember what, but I saw his name and I was like, oh, for Geoff Tate, because he spells it Geoff.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I think again, I always, because I had like skate magazines, but I never saw like a lot of the DVDs and stuff.
Sure.
And one of the skaters was Jeff Raleigh.
So you read it, but you didn't hear it.
Yeah, I would always read it, but I didn't exactly Jeff Raleigh.
Sure.
And no one corrected me that weekend. I was like, yeah, so I'll host for Geoff Tate.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, yes. And then I'm bringing him up. I'm like, guys, you know him from, and I was like, got this right. And also I was like, guys, put your hands together for Geoff Tate. And he comes on stage and he just goes, same thing. He goes, it's fucking Jeff, bro. And I go, what? And I go on stage and everyone's like, why would you say Geoff? I go, why would you guys let me say that? They were like, you're like weird. We thought you were like fucking around.
Yeah.
Like we were like
it was
joking
so
around.
Wrong.
Well, yeah.
It was such a known thing by literally every person who you said it to that nobody bothered to correct you because they didn't think anybody would not get it.
Yeah.
But again, you just weren't exposed to it.
Yeah.
It was a moment of ignorance.
Yeah, and that's just how it is.
What did that moment feel like when the audience popped and they were laughing at you?
Like all of a sudden, like you don't feel like you're dreaming, and all of a sudden you're just, like, that when you realize you're naked in a dream or whatever.
Just pure humiliation.
Oh, so bad, because I also feel like
it's break out in sweats.
No, I just panicked. I couldn't tell you what I just remember. Like I remember walking towards the back because that's what I remember. He like did it, and then I knew I had to get off stage. Like there is something to doing stand up to where you're like, I know, like there's this path that I'm going on. So already, I don't just like stand there. You don't get to like, I can't be like, what do you mean, man? They just have to say that, and he's taking the stage. I'm off.
Yeah, you don't get. There's no rebuttal at that.
There's
point.
no. I deserve, like, fucking make fun of me, dude. I fucked up.
You from the darkness. I've never been exposed to quite that spelling before,
dude. I have no idea. Yeah, dude. I was like, it was like, dude. I remember like, there's certain things that if you don't know, you don't know. I remember when I was a kid, my dad would always like kind of like shoo me away from like, I'd be like, hey, what about this? He's like, whatever. And I remember when I was a kid, dude, when you watch old movies, they're black and white.
Yeah.
And now things are not. Sure. So when I was a kid, I'd be like, hey, Dad. I was like, did the world used to be black and white? And he was like, what the fuck? Why would you think that? I'm like, The Wizard of Oz. A lot of stuff.
I've been witness to a lot of black and white shit.
Yeah.
And no explanation of what happened.
Yeah. The Beatles. Like, I remember like seeing the Beatles, and then you'd be like, wait, now why? So did they go get color? Like, I know that sounds stupid, but when you're a kid, you're like, I don't know how the fuck any of this works. So that's that thing. So I thought it was Geoff, and I say it, and then that moment, dude, I felt naked. I felt stupid. And then you walk to the back, and like, there's definitely a moment you start working these clubs that you're always waiting for this thing. Like, you're fired, mister. Sure, you're always waiting for like, you're out.
Yeah.
And so that happened. I felt terrible. And then told him, and we corrected it. And then I've seen him later. I've definitely seen him backstage. I went and saw him at Essig's. He had him open at his like farewell show.
He's very funny.
Dude, he's so funny.
Fucking funny.
And we talked about that.
Maybe more prolific.
Oh yeah,
like any comic. Like he puts out a ton of shit.
And dude, he has this energy where he's like one of those guys that's like he'll change the room, dude. An audience, like he brought it. Like that energy was fine during that show. Everyone was doing good. And he made this fucking pop, and I was like, he's so fucking funny. Yeah, and we talked about it later. He goes, oh, I like slapped your hand away. I was like, yeah, dude, but I like said your name wrong. He's like, I know, man, whatever. I was like, it was a different time.
The fact that dude's not more popular than he is proof that it is comedy is not a meritocracy.
Yeah, well, sure. And it's like that. It happens all that. There's not like one thing it doesn't happen in, and it's kind of like, I try to find comfort in just being like, you just kind of have to do your thing because like everyone always say that, like they're like, what about this guy, and then they pop, or something, this guy, then they pop, but there always will be a handful of guys that you see and you're like, that guy is so fucking good. And Jeff Tate is definitely one of those guys, like for sure. There's certain guys.
Good. Such a wonderful body of work.
Oh yeah, man. And I remember watching him back then, and he like had the audience.
Yeah, he's great. And
then I saw him like about 2 years ago, and he just fucking murdered. And he's like just one of those guys that you're just like, I don't feel like anyone has like those like weird or bad sets, which I do feel like we've talked about this before. I feel like you have, because some of us have like a need to make the audience happy. Yeah. And then there's some people that kind of are like, sometimes I could take it or leave it. And you're kind of like, you get comfy. And then there's other people that are like, you kind of are like, I have a thing to do here. You guys are also here, and I want you to enjoy this, and I care about it. But I'm gonna be me, and I'm not gonna waver who I am. Where at one point we were talking about this earlier, where I'll be like da 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 ha, like I want to like hype it up or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
I chase the really small moments where the thought comes out crystal clear, as perfectly as possible, and ends in a punchline, and it comes out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
I chase that. I'm getting teary-eyed.
Yeah, dude.
It's great.
It's the best. It's like it feels like magical. Like I've said, like
it's really wonderful.
It does feel like comedy does feel kind of spirit. It's like wild, like the things you get to meet and do and stuff like that too, and like that feeling you get when you have a thing on stage and when you can realize it when you're not because like sometimes when I'm chasing a laugh, by the time you get, you're like yes, okay, cool. But when you're just sitting back being like let's just go.
And to be clear, it's not like the funniest possible joke. It's not like the thing that is what most people would consider to be said by like the best comedian.
Yeah.
But it's just that like it's so fleeting.
Yeah.
And it just falls out.
Yeah.
And then it's gone.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like that's truly magical for it's like those like those fucking plants. Dude, let me give you a hug, baby. Dude, I love you, dude. You are so. I truly mean this too, and I'm not just saying. I've said this to other people, with like people that don't like, even if they're not stand-ups. Like you have such a fucking like you. My friendship with you is so valid that truly, it's like that's always like there.
Sure.
But as far as like seeing you as a stand-up, you're like a guy that's like. It's like there's those people that you like. I love watching stand up. Like I don't really have like a competitive nature. I really don't. Like I just like doing what I do. But I feel like you definitely don't either. And I like love. I feel like there's so many comics that watch you, and you're so unique that everyone enjoys. No one's ever like, oh fuck, I get funny Aaron Brooks. It's like, how do you have true stories and a vivid memory to remind you of all these details? Because you will pull out details and memories from stories that make me be like. Was my memory like in like 480p and yours is like in 4K? Like yours is like so much clearer. You like have these memories of things and clear ways to like how you saw stuff. And like I feel like everyone just stops and like watches you. And you've like since we've met, dude, we met like started about the same time.
Yeah.
Met and like you very much helped me. We were at the same level, but like I say this, like I was lucky. I had a lot of people in my corner and
there were a lot of really good people around when we started. We were really lucky.
We really like I was talking about Ryan Stout, like all these people, like they really cared about how people did. Like he came to town and like would care about how you did it stand up, how you worked in the scene, how the scene was, asking questions about stuff.
And it's important to note that like those people that like played that role, it doesn't mean they were funny at all. Humor, their ability as a stand-up comedian does not play into that.
Yeah.
But there were so many people that like were part of the scene that like you'd see them at a bar show and you knew their act by heart, you know? And by God, they didn't get a lot of laughs.
Yeah.
They were always there. They were always like the most fucking kind, courteous, caring people.
Yeah.
They were like good human beings, some of them, and they genuinely rooted for you.
Yeah.
And as like a new comic, like how helpful was that to know that like the guy who was like the best comic in the B room in town would come up to you after a set at a bar and be like, "Hey, good job." Like that meant so much.
It really did.
Starting out. And it was like when you first start, you grow to be the best according to whoever is around you. You measure yourself by your peers, I guess, you know, and then eventually like you get to that point where you surpass them or, you know, you change and you get better and you show your own personal growth. Like it doesn't matter who's good, who's not good, but like you find a thing that works for you.
Yeah.
And the further along you get into it, the more you feel like you can look back at it and be like, man, I was informed by these people that I started with, not because they were necessarily funny, but because they were kind, caring, good people.
Yeah. Which is so sweet, and you don't have to. And there's no college of it. You're not like teaching it. You're not getting like, hey, I'll coach you later and help you. Like truly people just helping you from the goodness of their heart, because it is like, that's how you know it's like special. Like, it's like if someone learns how to, I can't fucking think. Like, I don't know, be a doctor. Like, yeah, you have other people, but you're like, you go to, like, no one just takes you under your wing and it's like, I'm going to, from like start to finish, like when you're just starting at like school, like you kind of have to like start yourself. But when you start here, you see it as like just you. And then all these people that are around that you kind of get like helped out with and stuff like that.
You have
too.
to prove that you're worth helping.
You do for sure.
And you know, it's either through talent as a comedian or promise as a comedian, or from just being like a high character person.
Yeah.
You know,
for sure. But you were always like, you were so important that I remember we did your roast because you were moving from St. Louis to Austin. Well, because but you still lived over on the Illinois side, right?
I grew up over there, and that's where I lived. But I was a St. Louis comedian.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, but for sure. But then, and we could talk about all that. But like over like Comedy Etc. 2, which you helped me get in there with Art Veloff, and like you would take me see shows. I always love bringing up Jim Wiggins to people. Like, do you know Jim Wiggins? Like, I got to see like a true treasure. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, it's all that shit's like so fucking fun to see things you've never seen before. And that was the first time I saw Pauly Shore live, which is like, dude, dude, Encino Man, dude. I watched it when I was a kid. It was great. I also was tripping really hard and put on that movie. It's a great it's such a good movie, dude.
It's a fun time.
It's a good movie.
There's a reason they made a dozen of them.
Yeah, dude. They were so silly.
Made that money.
Yeah, dude.
It cost nothing to make.
Yeah. And it's like, that shit's fun.
It's got the weasel.
But when you go around and it's like, so you were a St. Louis comic, and I remember we had you were going away, and like people would move away.
Yeah.
But I remember people were like, this matters that you're moving away.
Yeah.
Because you were a very like integral part. You helped everyone else out.
Sure.
You encouraged people. Like while you were hosting, instead of just like eating up that time and like just like a lot of guys do, just like looking in the mirror of like getting a lot of work, fucking doing this. And it's like all that stuff. It's like you would be like, I'll just help people and talk about this. And like, we're very kind to everybody. And that also helped you get a lot of work, which is crazy. People think that if you help people, it's like you're not going to get work. It's like, no, I'm already getting work. We're all going to keep doing this. Yeah. We all are going to go like very far together, because we all see that this is like a thing you can do forever. And when we did like the roast of you and everything, I also remember that it was like one of those things where we're like, we got to roast him because he's going away and we love him so much. Does anyone know anything shitty about Aaron Brooks?
Yeah.
Does anyone have any kind of dirt? Because wow, this guy's fucking nice. I think if anything, I remember I dressed up. I probably did some as me a little bit, but I think I dressed up like, did me and JC switch spots or something like that? Where like I dressed up like him and wore his hat.
Yeah, and he dressed up like me, and
and we did something silly. But I just remember
I'm a fat person, so there JC downed like an entire like squeeze jar of grape jelly. He was just eating. Like, just making fun of me being fat, which doctors later confirmed has a hypothyroidism. I've since lost like 70 pounds.
Yes. And you look great. That was the first thing I said when I saw you, because it's like, I mean, I really have this thing where it's like, I love you. I love joking around, but even my friends who, when I was growing up, like, I've never been like, haha, you're fat. Like, it's just not.
Oh, I mean, I'm, again, clearly,
I grew up with fat people in my family.
Fat as fuck. And I blame it on the thyroid, but it's like, come on. It's not like I'm fucking pounding salads and
for
shit,
sure.
You know?
But
each of us both talked about the shared experience earlier of eating an entire pint of ice cream in one sitting. Yes. That's not glandular.
Oh my God, dude. And it's like, some people just like, when people are like, they can like cut it off. I'm just like, what? Because like, even when my best friend growing up too, like he was bigger than me. He was like, it was a lineman playing football. I always ate more because I would like not eat. And then when I would, I'd go insane, dude. And I would eat ice cream, dude. I'd put that shell ice cream on it on the top where it makes it like that hard mold. Dude, I would eat that, put extra shit on top. I would eat it at night, and dude, I would go crazy, dude.
Really,
and I'm probably
zhuzhing it up.
Oh my God, dude, I would go insane, and I would just keep eating it. Like,
I love the idea of a young Bobby just like with a fucking line of dessert condiments on a fucking
just going crazy.
Going
you
nuts.
ever seen the movie Blank Check?
Of course.
My dream is still cool limo driver, trash can of ice cream.
Yeah.
Remember, he's like, oh, I'll take it. And he's got it just like the size of a trash can. It's like a dumpster. And that's what he's eating. That's what I want. That's literally what, whenever
make it look like a cartoon banana split.
Yeah.
Just give me that.
Dude, my buddies from St. Louis, when we started, we were like doing comedy. We'd all hang out together. We were on sketch groups, all this stuff. And I would always late at night, it's just like, dude, if you're smoking weed, like when you first start smoking, you really are like, what the fuck do Funyuns taste like now?
Yeah,
like they kind of, I was like, and I would be like, hey, let's go get ice cream. And at one point, my buddy Steve goes, when you like get high, like right now, like, do I look like an ice cream cone to you? He was like, you always get so fucked up and you want ice cream. He's like, dude, the closest place is Froyo and it's so expensive. Tomorrow we're not gonna be able to afford McDonald's and you want to go get like a 14, because I'm definitely throwing stuff on. But yeah, dude,
oh, for sure.
I'm trash, dude.
Yeah. Nobody's walking out of there without spending 30% of their visit at that bar.
Yeah,
you know?
And we were talking about that earlier, and I was like, I eat so much, and you're like, check this out, and you showed me that sorbet that's like, even if you down the whole thing, it's only like 320 calories.
Sorbet is the way to go, baby.
Dude, absolutely. Because that as you get older, I'm like, my cravings don't go away, but I can at least alter the thing I'm gonna like be putting in.
Yeah, you figure out what works good for you. You convince yourself that Diet Coke is the answer to everything.
Yes.
You buy, however much you buy when you buy it.
Yeah.
Enough to like drink for a year.
Yeah.
And that's your 30s, man.
Dude, I drink Zevia usually, but like when you said you want Diet Coke, I go, I do. And you showed it to me, you gave me and I think it looks like the same one. Did you watch Batman when you were a kid? You know, the 19, dude, I loved that fucking movie. But I also had it on VHS when like before it had like previews. And I remember that like the thing before it was like, they would make like the movie would make a commercial.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like for Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And when you gave it to me, I always see at the end, they thought that the coolest shot is they put a little cape around the outside of the Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And he's like, Alfred's like, it'll be here when you get here. And just picturing him like, dude, he just fucking beat the shit out of like all these henchmen.
Yeah.
And he gets home and he's got this like fucking like koozie around like half of it that he's just like, and they were like, that looks so cool. So at the end of it, he's like, it'll be here when you get here. And it's like, you see the Batmobile, it's like a different shot. Like, I don't even know how they got this for Coca-Cola. And at the end, they're just like, put a little cape on it. Like, but that is like, when you gave that to me, I could like see it like flowing in the fucking pretend wind that they had on there.
I really apologize that I didn't have any can capes hanging around.
Dude, no worries at all. Dude, no worries. I just like, I could see it on there anyway.
Well, it's like that iconic, Pizza Hut commercial,
Which one?
The one with the baseball one.
Bro,
We can play right field. It's important, you got to know how to catch. You got to know how to throw.
That's why I play right field.
Out where the
dandelions grow.
Pizza Hut,
making it great, dude. Oh man, I feel like the Ninja Turtles movie's about to start, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. I remember. Yeah, you could feel it because he's like, at the point, you gotta know how to catch. It's like, you gotta know how to throw.
It's like you gotta wonder like how many people can we get Michael McDonald to do this?
Yeah.
Can we get Joe Cocker? I mean, can we get Joe Cocker to do this?
Yeah.
Like, even Joe Cocker was like, "Fuck that."
Yeah. Whoever did that was like, that song's a banger.
It's great.
That song's up there.
Great.
It's one of those ones that it's like you didn't have to go that hard, but they did. That's like Tarzan.
Sure.
Yeah. Making and that kid, because that kid does show up and he's in the outfield, dude. It cuts to him and he's like, "What the fuck, dude?" It looks like he didn't even make it to practice. He is like, "What the fuck do I do?"
Yeah.
And then like they hit it and he's like, I remember the whole thing now, dude. He's like doing this. Everyone's getting up from the bench.
Everybody's so fucking pissed off at this child
because the kid knew to hit it in that field, dude. And it goes up there and he's like, the kid sucks. And all he does is I think he kind of catches it like the guy from Sandlot. Doesn't he kind of just like put his glove up a little
he
bit?
Just throws his glove up there.
Yeah.
And as luck would have it.
As the luck that Pizza Hut can bring.
Yeah.
Was it Domino's or Pizza Hut?
It was 100% Pizza Hut.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Pizza. Yeah, dude. And he caught that and they had one pan pizza for that whole team.
You're immediately launched into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Bro.
You start out that movie at like an 8.
Bro.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you just saw what is arguably the best VHS. I don't know. I'm sure it was it used in other. I mean, I always think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with it. I'm assuming it was used for other things.
I am too, but that's the first. I think maybe even maybe not Free Willy, but I feel like it's like those were around the same time where they had the same ones, and then I could dissect the Ninja Turtles movie. I know they have a new one coming out.
Looking forward to it.
Totally. I like Ninja Turtles, but that one back, like, such a feat. Jim Henson helped, and then later was like, hey, you're not allowed to be that violent. And they're like, whoops.
Yeah, we deserve an R-rated, true to the comic books Ninja Turtles.
That's what I've said. Like, I kind of think that it'd be a cool movie. It's like if you could, like, a guy like we smoke weed and you throw a joint down like a sewer, and then you see like skateboarding down like Mikey pick up and like smoke a roach. Like having like a dark ass R-rated one is gonna be sick. I'm excited to see. Like, I can't wait to see this. But dude, do you remember? I remember, dude, even the Foot Clan when you were a kid. When I was a kid, anytime they'd show a movie, they're like, these are the bad kids. You're like, they are, and I don't like them.
Yeah, 100%.
But the Foot Clan and the fucking guy when he's like, regular or menthol.
Yeah.
What I was like, I'm going to smoke cigarettes tomorrow, and I'm buying them by the carton, dude. They made cartons of cigarettes look cool. Every time I see a carton, I think of that movie. I think of the Foot Clan.
Yeah.
And, dude, that movie just fucking, it rules.
It's great.
It rules so hard that I went, when I was going to New York by myself for the first time, and I think it was when we were going with the group. The night before, dude, I could have watched a thing about sketch comedy, stand-up, anything. I put on the Ninja Turtles, and I literally laid there, and they showed New York City. I was like, I'm going there. And I was like,
I will be there.
I'm going to go there. Yeah. And you're like, oh, dude, I bet Mikey and them have probably been around here. But yeah, that movie, it was, I do think, I'm not one of those guys that I think like older movies are always better. I don't. I think, but like, that's one that I think still holds up. Compared to like you're like, everything looks stupid. Like if a Ninja Turtle walked in, you'd be like, that looks crazy. But you're like, that thing looks like it really exists. Like they made it like physically exist in the world, which looked pretty fucking cool, dude.
Well, yeah, and that VHS also had like the behind the scenes thing. And that was like really cool too.
Yeah, it's weird it doesn't come back like vinyl, but for the longest time people would be like, you have a VHS player? And I'd be like, yeah. And then I loved having people spend the night, dude. And if everyone was gonna spend the night, you put it in and you're beep.
Yep.
Boop, boop, beep, boop, boop, beep. Dude, it's like tracking, dude. I love that sound.
All the fleeting memories of our youth.
Yeah, dude. I love it. I think it's fun. Like, I don't know. I love like an old VHS tape. I would buy them from like Goodwill's. They're like, you can have that.
Yeah. I mean, nostalgia is a powerful drug.
Yeah. My buddies, their family was having like a yard sale and they were selling old VHSs.
Sure.
And they were like, what do we sell these for? And it's like between a penny and $1, I guess, but it's like even $1, you're like, what are we doing with this?
I worked at a so I used to work at this Borders in the mall in South County, and when Borders went out of business, this other company moved in, and it was basically like a used bookstore and video games and shit. Yeah, and they had VHSs in there. Yeah, and we would pay people literally like a penny. Yeah, if somebody brought you a fucking stack of VHSs, it's like these are. 99% of these are going to be a penny. Yes. You might get one that's like 50 cents or $1. And on the rare occasion you have something that's like truly valuable, you should sell that thing on the internet. Yeah. You know? But most of them were like, we'll take them. If you want to leave them here, like we'll throw them up, you know. Yeah. They had so many fucking things. So everybody's like, I have the original Little Mermaid. It's like, yeah, you and a billion other people. Yeah. How do you think that, you know, like, they made so many of them. Yeah, they did. They made so many. And like it's kind of like whenever I first started buying records, I can't remember, like, it's like there's like a Elton John one or something, but like you see it and you're like, oh, and then later you're like, oh yeah, this is like it did so well. They put so many out there. Or like, dude, I mean, you can't go to a Goodwill. It's like, it's just known, but it's like, you can't even go without seeing a Jerry Maguire. It's like, how many did they make? Was there a time in this country where everyone was just helping this country make Jerry Maguire VHSs? That movie opens with like an intense fuck scene. Remember? Oh yeah, so, dude. Like here I am, like a teen. Dude, it does turn on fucking horny. It gets hard. I'm gonna watch this movie with my mom, and like I am just like a constant hard on. They have like sweat, and I think it was like Hollywood sweat, where you're just like, I don't even sweat like that. Like it was like kind of stayed on him a little bit. You could see their backs. He's fucking. It's like they're fucking in a produce section. Yeah, it's just missed. Everywhere. You like want to turn down the movie. Yeah. You're like, oh my god, this is sucks. Yeah, I forgot. It's more very intense. People are like, show me the money. You're like, show me all this fucking at the beginning of this movie. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great because it's like you don't have far to go. It's right at it. Okay, so I feel like we found our way here, and I don't want. If you have somewhere to go with this story, tell me. But I have to know, like, did you have a VHS you used to jerk off to? And I'll tell you the one I remember. You don't have to, because VHSs were. It was different than magazines. Like we didn't really have I couldn't get a magazine in the house. People talk about that. No. I had a VHS. Mine was. There was two. I had a DVD in my room, but if I got tired of that one, there was another one. I would have to, when I was young enough, I would have to sneak in my parents' room to get it, but Roadhouse. Oh shit. Okay.
because he's fucking that girl. I used to think you had to have sex with your hips that much. Like he's like having sex with her, and it's like I'm like, damn, his quads probably shake, but it's like that's why he does like all that working out in the morning in the sun.
Yeah.
And then the scene later, whenever the guy's like, I'm on my break, like he's fucking her in the back. That was enough to just, oh God. Oh, that was all I needed. I mean, Roadhouse forever.
For me, it wasn't like a specific VHS. It was a rotation of whatever we could record off of the premium channels that had been taken away. So they were super grainy. 19 was HBO. 17 was Showtime.
Yes.
Cinemax was 21. We did not have Cinemax. So it was just Showtime and HBO. And the trick was you got to get my brother and I had bunk beds. I'm going to admit a lot of things right now.
Let's go.
My brother and I had bunk beds, and we shared a television and a VCR, obviously. So it was a lot of like waiting for him to fall asleep. Then I go in the middle of the night and I put the VHS in and record all the shit that comes on overnight.
Yeah.
And I put another VHS in front of the panel so there's no lights on.
Yeah.
So if he wakes up, he's not seeing that red record light. It's a dead giveaway. And then you got to sift through the entire catalog of what's on overnight.
You have to like preheat jerking off.
You got to prep. There's a little bit of prep with that strategy. Thankfully, we are out of that age and into the truly digital era.
And so you would so you have to like know what you're going to record, know the time.
No, that's the beauty of it. You don't know what you're going to record.
Oh, so but what are you breezing through? Just like the channels. You're like
you put on HBO and you hit record and then you go to sleep. Right? Not knowing what's coming on, and then you wake up to like a 6-hour VHS and you just gotta skim, baby.
Bro. Dude,
you gotta wait for Beverly Hills Bordello or Real Sex to come on.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Oh
my God. And then that's because when you're young too, that's gotta be kind of exciting because you're like, I'm gonna jerk off, but you're also like, I don't know when it's gonna get good. I don't know when this movie is when I'm gonna get into it and what I'm watching. That's wild.
Every day was a grab bag.
Yeah. It is kind of fun. Like it definitely now it's like I'm just like
easy.
It's so easy.
I'm in like a totally off the grid era.
Oh really?
Yeah, I'm in one of those.
You find it in the streets?
No, I'm finding it's all in it's in my brain, man.
Oh, you're going back to old memories.
No, not even necessarily. I mean, sure, there are some memories in there. But also like, I'm conjuring new things. I'm thinking my own, I'm building my own database.
You're fucking. And you're like a tree or
is
something.
Is it ever you or is it just like
that's what I'm wondering. I don't know.
It's certainly not somebody else, but I think from my perspective on this is a lot of like
it's just shapes.
That's it. We can shut it down.
Though we don't have to. I'm saying like
it's just shapes. Yeah.
Tell me. Like what do you like? Because like for me, I'll just be like I'll just kind of picture like a big butt or something like that. And I'm like, I also like I haven't jerked off for like funsies in a minute. Like a lot of times I'm ripping them out in the shower, just being like, I have to go somewhere. I'm in a hurry.
Needed.
Yeah, I got to get this. I have an oil change before I go to this thing or whatever. Yeah.
This is purely like utility.
Yeah. So you're going off the grid. You're going through. You're just like, oh man, like what? Yeah, you're just using the old brain.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Anything beyond that is probably too much. But it's just getting off your phone.
Yeah.
It's getting it's
because it always feels ridiculous.
Break.
You do need a tolerance break. I think sometimes just for even just like that anything like that, just jerking off with stuff, not stuff. But there's so many times where you'll be like, as soon as you're done, like you feel a little silly anyways, but just like when you have to stop the video, it's like, you know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, why?
No,
like this just feels so silly.
And you got high hopes.
You're like,
you started, you're like, this isn't for me.
Yes. Yeah. Most of it's not for me. Most of like, cause I hit random dice. I'll hit be like, let's see what it'll bring me. I don't even know what I like really still.
Have a plan.
I got no plans.
You got to navigate the website.
Yeah.
You got to be a little more technical about it, but you can't just dice roll because there's a lot of shit out there.
Yeah.
And, it's for all people.
Yeah.
And the spectrum of the shit you like is much smaller than the one you're rolling dice on.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. Do you remember one thing I do like, and I talked about this with someone the other day, I was like, we both like like kind of not bad comedy, but just whenever.
I love bad comedy.
You know what I mean?
It,
like it's like, but this is like old. Yeah, it's like specific. Me and Essex were talking about this too. But like I told him how every once in a while we'll remember this video that like Aaron reminded us is online of a comedian. And dude, watching like when someone sends you a video, it's like because I've also like reviewed submission tapes for certain things like festivals and stuff, and like you really do try to watch it sometimes from being like. I'm not putting my judgment. I'm like listening to the audience. Yeah. There's a scoring system. I'm going to judge it off of that because I want to be fair because that's how you all want to be. Everyone wants to be treated.
Exactly.
And then once that's over, there are the times you're like, I'll put an asterisk by that because like I've seen a guy, dude.
I want to revisit this later.
Oh God,
when I'm alone.
We all have some of those videos. We send people. The one guy, dude, there's this guy where he's like, at one point they are on his side, and then they give him one like groan. He goes, what? Come on, look, comedy club. Like he was almost like, I'm a lot. Like he was almost like, it's my amendment. Like he just like pointed. He
you
just
have to laugh at everything.
And he changed his demeanor. And I was laughing so hard. I remember my girlfriend at the time was like, "What are you laughing at?" I was like, "Watch this," and she thought it was pretty funny. I could not stop laughing.
There's definitely like it's an acquired taste maybe.
Yes.
I don't know if it is. Maybe it's innate. Like maybe I just love watch. I love watching realistic attempts at the art form that just don't fucking work. It just doesn't fucking work. I like it, and I love it in stand up. I love it in movies. You know? I love it. You know? There's something very genuine about someone who pours so much of themselves into like a creative project. That takes place outside of the primary part of their life. There's something worth celebrating about finishing. And repeating that process. And like growing as an artist and getting better at the thing and refining the thing and your voice, it's like this mythical thing that when you first start stand up, everybody talks about the voice. You have to find your voice, and eventually you just fucking do it. You just
find the shirt that fits, and you're not even like, just kind of like, you kind of fall in. You can't tell people that. You can't tell people like, you try to be like, it takes time. They're like, I know, but what do I need to know? Like, I bet I'll be faster at this game than anybody.
If you do it for long enough, you're going to wake up one day and realize, man, I've been telling jokes, kind of the same kind of jokes, the same way, at least like from the same perspective now for the last 3 years. And you go, oh, fuck, I already did it. You expect that you feel like these moments are like something that you work towards and then it happens. Like the light bulb turns on.
No.
The light bulb turns on, but it turns on very slowly. It's on a dimmer switch starting at the bottom, and it's very gradually being pushed up day by day. And eventually you wake up and the fucking lights are on, and you go, okay, the lights are on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like it never ends. That you think that like once the lights are on, it's like I've been saying, it's like happily ever after, but it's like, no, there's still other rooms you want to explore. You want to turn other lights on that you're like I think like all the great comics that we always like and talk about, like everyone that you enjoy or any artist, they always kind of like, if you try to reinvent yourself on purpose, it's like, that's crazy. But I feel like as comics, you're like, if you're being honest, you'll find your own voice. And it does feel like you said, it's like this mystical thing where you're like, you'll just kind of find it. Like, I feel like I was definitely pushing really hard to be like, what, this is how I am.
I mean,
and then eventually kind of just, like you said, it happens. And now there's this thing of like, how comfortable can I get on stage? And then you get too comfortable and being like, well, I want to be comfortable, but I also don't want my whole show for people to be like, I really don't like, I'm not just listening, I don't like this. You know what I mean?
Like this is about me and the art form. You know? Like, that's okay. Like everybody, everything exists on a spectrum, and there's a pendulum that runs along that spectrum, and you bounce from between this bleeding heart, like 100% for the art. Do fuck everything else. To like understanding, like, man, comedy's a lot more fun when the audience like laughs all the time.
Exactly. So it's like, exactly. It's like, I want to have a good time if I'm going to go on a date. So I'm going to have a good time, but it's important that you have a good time too. But if it's very obvious you're not, that's not going to fuck me up.
But like it's the most, and it kind of like rounding back to what we were talking about, how early on we were exposed to, people who cared and were positive. Like, maybe more importantly than it's given credit is like the ability and the freedom to like oscillate. To be able to like try shit out. And to be able to like not have that held against you. And to be able to get to a point.
Yeah.
Like that's really important too. So, and somebody, you know, there definitely are people that don't rely on honesty or don't think it's a part of the process and are very like A plus B equals C. You know? And those people I'm jealous of, but yeah, you if you're not doing that, then like, yeah, you'd probably benefit from being honest. You don't have to be like, you don't necessarily have to be open.
No, but when I was a kid, I remember being like, I wanted, like, if I saw a thing I wanted and liked, like if I was like, oh, I like those, those shoes would make me look cool, and then you try them on and they're not comfortable. You're like, oh, I'm gonna do this because I think this is how people will see me or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you put on the thing, and you're like, oh, now I have comfortable shoes, and then you realize that you're like, no one's looking at your shoes, no one cares, and then you start to realize that being comfortable, being you, is like the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I think as you find that comfortability, it's great. What you like. You are so good. Like you're just such a guy that you just get lost in watching, that you're just like, this is so, it really is. It's fucking fun. You're just like, well, there's definitely like, there's a couple comics that like when you're on a show with them and you're next, that you are like, oh yeah, they're next, but you kind of like get in the zone a little bit. And I think at one point was like stepped outside and then came back in, but there's definitely times where you just like watch and then all of a sudden I'll be like, oh fuck, I'm on this show too. Like I was such a member of just watching it, because it's like I definitely have like jokes that I'm like, I've done this joke before, I've done this joke, I'm gonna do this, I'm refining this.
Yeah.
And you're telling the same story, but you're better about being like, I'm gonna feel this. I really am gonna feel this again. Like just like someone who sings, like you can hit the notes, but if you're like, damn, I can feel that guy saying that, you're very good at doing that. And like I feel like I can too sometimes, but there's definitely times where I fake a feeling. And it's weird. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you acted good enough.
I hate it.
But for sure. And sometimes when you do it, you are like, oh, that tricked him. And then it doesn't. And then, but that's why I'm like, I feel weird. And of course, and you're so good at being like, I don't really care about that. I'm not going to placate to you.
It feels so exposed.
It does feel exposed. And like, I've done that too, because it's like at the end of the day, like that fear of not doing this is so big. But then eventually realize that like, you're kind of in control of it. No one's going to take away this thing you've built. No one can really take it away from you.
Yeah.
So there's nothing to be scared of. We were talking about that earlier. Like nothing to be, no, don't be scared. Just do the thing that you love and finding your voice. And you're just so good at it. You really can sit in it and take people on a fun fucking ride. It's cool.
You know, again, being like, I was totally supported in every possible way.
Yeah.
By my mentor, Art Veloff.
Art's great.
There was never a point where like Art gave me a lot of stage time really early on, like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I was hosting shows on the weekend.
And that was like in a row?
No, like at 6 weeks into comedy.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So I've been probably somewhere around there. Because he helped me get a booking with Dustin Diamond, and that was in like March, I think, and I started in December.
Yeah.
By my birthday's in August, and I was featuring at that point. And he gave me so much freedom. He never told me like how to tell a joke, or like he never told me what a joke is.
Yeah.
You know, he never reprimanded me if I didn't have a good set.
No.
He would just say like, just don't do the same set 2 times in a row.
Yeah.
You know, just like, don't become a fucking robot. Don't become a machine.
Yeah.
And that for me allowed me to like do a lot of like trial and error.
For sure.
You know, and you have an idea about a bit and you start down a path and you could do X, Y, or Z.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so over the course of a weekend, I'm like in front of a live paid audience, like trying all 3 and then picking one and doing it at the last show. I'm doing 4 shows a weekend, you know, and in addition to whatever else was going on. So it allowed me to like sort of refine stuff, I think. And it was all the quantity, the volume of stage time I received early on was so beneficial for me. And the guidance that I got from Art was so beneficial, because it was never like, it was always about growth, and it was always about like embracing creativity and becoming like a good comic.
Yeah.
And like not making the sell the punchline.
Yeah.
You know, it's not it's everything else.
Yeah.
And so I owe everything to him.
Yeah.
And
dude.
It really helped me sort of develop a style. And then living in Austin, there were times when I first moved to Austin that I would like call my mom in tears saying like, I'm so different from everybody here.
Yeah.
Everybody here is telling jokes, like set up punchline jokes.
Sure.
And I'm not. I'm just telling a story.
Right.
I'm doing and I'm not a joke writer. So I had to learn. I had to learn how to do that. And the further I got into comedy, the more I did, which allowed me to throughout the course of a story, see a spot and go, oh, here's where a joke can go.
Right.
And here, but it's all about the narrative.
It is.
The whole thing is like, I got into comedy because everybody said I was funny. Everybody said I was funny because I would tell the stories at parties.
Yeah.
I would tell the stories sitting around a fucking table at
You do. You hold court
Applebee's,
very well. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you don't come in and take it.
No.
It ends up to you. And even when I was telling you, it was me, you, and O'Brien at my house, and we were all hanging out. It's comics were all doing stuff, but it's you can very much tell that where is everyone eventually, you know what I mean? If there's an opinion to be had or something, or if you start talking, everyone's like,
yeah. And that's
it's a magnetism. It's beautiful. You really do, dude.
That's the gift that I was born with. I'm an excellent communicator. I'm a patient communicator. And for me, I think that in a room, I came from nothing. My family was so fucking poor as a kid. And I don't give a shit what people think. No. I'm going to try to be the best version of myself every single day. And there are people who are into what I'm doing. And because I'm so far on the spectrum, there are certainly people who are not into what I'm doing. Yeah. And that's okay too. That's fine. I don't care.
Well, that's cool. I think it's cool that you're comfortable with that now, because I think that's a hard thing to get that's part of finding your voice. Is it's how do you get comfortable on stage when you're already sometimes not comfortable off stage too?
Sure.
And I'll feel that way sometimes. I'll feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I feel you're neither one of those. And that finding that on authenticity quicker helps you save that time to do that. Cause you said, I do think it's still important to you should try on jokes, do sure. Right. I think every comic at some point, I remember the first time I told the story when it went well. I remember the first time I was telling one-liner jokes. I remember what it was telling true stories, telling a fake story. You try all these things on, but it's all to find who you are. And it's not and I think it's cool that art gave you that freedom, because some people do tell you exactly what you have. This is how you have to do it. But people who know that it's not about going somewhere the fast. It's not about this. It's like you said earlier, everything's a spectrum, but stand up is so that, because it can be anything.
We smoked a lot of weed earlier, and I think I got off track. But what I meant to say was that I think I'm not alone in this. This is a thought that I have regularly about stand up. I got into stand up because the people around me told me I was funny, and that was because I was the one holding court telling stories. And you get into stand up, and that gets beaten out of you pretty early on. Yeah. You're told that you need to be punchier, for whatever reason, the goal of stand up, when you start, is you got to get as many laughs as possible. You got to just bang, bang, bang. They need to always be laughing. And it's that's a totally different skill set than the time that you're bullshitting with your friends and you've got this story and everybody's cracking up around it. Yes. Now the ability to take those stories and make them relatable to the audience is, who doesn't know your friend Jimmy, who whatever, the way to do that is a skill in and to itself. But I feel as young comics, that gets beaten out of you pretty quickly. Yeah, and I wish it didn't, because I think that there are a lot of people who would be much better, if you want to view it as a storyteller. That's fine, or who would be a much better comedic storyteller focused on punchlines than you would consider a traditional stand-up comedian.
Absolutely. I remember there was a comic that I was talking to in St. Louis that she was she'd asked me, she was hey, can I talk to you? And she was yeah, and she said she was talking to some of her friends, and she was hey, and she was they say I'll never get work at this club. And I was well, I get what they're saying. And I was well, this club that it is a certain thing. And sometimes people will be I don't know. I've always felt both ways where I'm I like trying both of them. I like doing alt rooms. I like doing a club room, and you kind of try both things on. It's it's just when you go to a wedding. No, I don't always wear a suit, but what would I look like in it? And I want to look, it's kind of fun to try those things on, try clean, whatever. And I did it. And I remember being I told her, I go, well, if you ever want, I don't know everything, but you can ask around. There are people who could help you, and be here's some of the things you need to know, because you do have to go through the whole round of being a host. Some people skip it or whatever, but you have to learn how to do this. And there's a way to be and there's a way to be a club comic. But we were hanging out, and I told her, I go, you could do that. I go, but I also really like weird. I like very wild, weird comedy. And if someone told Maria Bamford to be different, that would bum me out. To know that we wouldn't have who she is now. Yeah. And then I swear to God, like a year later to the date, Maria Bamford was looking for an opener, and she was like, I'm available, and opened for her.
That's great.
And that's huge. And that when you get, and then, you know what I mean? There, she was like, we had such a good time or whatever. And it's like when you can do stuff like that and realize that like you can play by the rules, and that does help. That does help pay your bills and all that stuff too. Sure. There are, if you want it, you get paid work. But at the end of the day, is it like, if you did it for you sign, because I think all of us try to do it for like the art, and I'm also like, I'll probably be famous after I do it like twice. You have these like things in your head. I want to try this, and then once you do, you realize, oh, it's a longer thing than I thought.
Yeah.
But if you can't enjoy the whole process, it's like the thing's not for you. It's not just the stage time; it's everything. Because even early on, like you had a lot of freedom, and also like art cared about fostering you, and you got to go on the road. Like I remember, like. You were like one of the comics that was like, you're like, yeah, I was just here. I'm like, damn, you would go on the road with so many people. You learned how it worked. You got to meet people, and you were never like egotistical about it. You were never like, I do all this. You were always just like, this is just what I do. And you get funnier at it, and we always had long conversations. I remember when I worked at the firehouse, you would call and we'd be on the phone for hours. And I remember, because I was like, if you're home, you have time. But like, I remember we were just talking. I'd be there for 24 to 48 hours. So you would call. And I still remember I'd be like walking back and forth in the engine bay. And I'm like, someone has to look out. And I was like, I was talking to I guarantee they're like, oh man, he's probably talking to some lady for sure. Like they're like, because we would be talking forever and be like, you're right, yes. And we've always like been like, are we on the right track? And we do things very differently, but like we both have the exact same love or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we fit into this thing very well. And you've always just been like someone that like, I feel like there needs to be more storytellers right now. Like, cause I'll see stories, but you really take someone through so many fucking great details of stuff too. Like even earlier when you were telling me the story that I knew, and then you added that fucking detail, I was like, oh my God, you're right. You're like, yeah. And I'm like, we both smoke weed. Yeah. But your memory is unlike anyone I've ever seen. And it's weird. It is weird, dude. Yeah. You will fucking pull shit back. They'll be like, you're right. It was that. You're like, yeah. And I'm like, I have a blurry vision of it, and you remember it. But
yeah. I have a pretty detailed memory. It's not like photographic or anything, but like I can't like look at a piece of paper and
whatever. But you have something there. Yeah.
And I think it's also like, I don't know, man. My mom is funny.
Yeah.
And like,
how is your mom funny? Because I love it. Like people sometimes is she like you? She's the same.
Yeah. She's a story. My whole family. I come from like poor people from the Ozarks. And there's nothing to do. Nobody's got any money, so they're just sitting around spinning yarns. Like that was just like you go sit with my grandparents. Like that's what they're gonna do. What are you gonna watch? Fucking another episode of Matlock or like another Red Skelton VHS? Like no, we're just sitting around and everybody's talking. And there was always like 3 or 4 conversations happening in the room at any point in time, and you dip in and out of them. Yeah, my whole family was like always like that. Like these weird high-level communicators with each other.
Yes.
And I think for me, I have a good understanding of like I have a good understanding of how to like unravel these little moments. That's my favorite thing in comedy is like finding the humor or finding the significance in the really small moments. Yeah. And the mundane. Like and that's the thing I think I'm pretty good at. And you know, I think that might just be like a stylistic thing.
I love it, but that's like I always do think that whenever like it's like it's a like going in a car, like if you're gonna go down the same street, if you're in a car, whoa, look how fast we got from here to here. That felt cool. And then it's like if you're on a bike, you're like, okay, we're kind of pacing a little different. This is funny, but it's like I noticed there building. But then when you go on a stroll and you get to notice like every like little thing or whatever, you're like,
it's just done on a longer time frame.
Yeah. Me and my buddy, and I don't know where the quote came from, but one of my buddies who I love, he's very sweet dude too. He'll always be like, all artists can find like, you can see a building and that's art, but if you get down, you see a brick, and then in that brick, there's like all this detail. And it's like, I think that's why I feel like writers. I think whenever people's like, yeah, I've been able to write lately, I'm like, give me a thing and I can ignite it. Give me something. I'll pull it from there. Me and Rafe would do that with the open mic every once in a while. I'd be like, something. Give me anything. Yeah. And he would give it to me, and we would start to like do like improvise and do stuff like that. Cause like I feel like you have this beautiful emotional thing. I love to just I like to just be like, what can I find on stage? Because that feels like it fuels my ADHD. It feels
Yeah.
that thing or whatever too. But I've always, oh my God, I can't ever get over watching like whenever you do stand up because it's like it's so fun. Like it lined up so perfectly because you were just gonna be in town already, and when we got to do that show together, it was cool because like I like having like. Sometimes they'll just book the opener for you or whatever. It's like until you're at like a better level, you bring people with you or whatever. But that was the time where I was in town. I know I'm like, do you care if I pick? And the fact that it got to be all of us, and it was just it was so fucking fun. And I
it was
love,
a lot of fun.
There's something cool about watching around when you look around, everyone's like dying laughing at someone. That's awesome. But when you look around and watch people like, you watch people watching you where you're just like, they're like so entranced in your story. They're like, what? Yes. And like, dude, there's many, I think most of the times you'll tell true, like a story. And I know you've never like, they're all true, but I'll have to be like, yeah, dude, is that for real? And you're always like 100% real. I was like, dude, that's insane that happened, dude.
Comes from like building it out over the course of like the details,
Yeah.
And like, generally speaking, like the narrative on the arc might not be as long from A to Z, maybe it's A to M, you know, but it's like you can still explore B, C, D, E, F, you can still like find stuff along the way to like that are worth talking about.
Yes.
And that I wouldn't necessarily say like propel the narrative forward, but it definitely colors it in.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it's like you can be as specific as you want, and there's so many different frequencies to tap into.
Yeah.
And there's just more than, and I like when someone has like a really funny joke, like someone could have like we'll say like a topical joke, and I'm like, damn, that was funny. I love that. I've heard a lot of takes on that. That's like the funniest thing I've heard. What's up, dude? I was like, we've heard a lot of like takes on that.
Sure.
But when you see someone do something so unique, like when you go and like see like fine like dining, or you're like, wait, I've never even seen someone put food like that before. You see something, it really makes you pay attention more, first of all. And that was something me and Ryan Stott were talking about. He was like this guy who he's like, everyone was talking during this mic, everyone was going crazy out of the show, and then he's like one of those guys. He was just like, as he got on stage, he was like. And everyone just like shut up. He's like, like to me, that's so good. Cause there's sometimes on stage, the first time we can talk about it so many times, but I really feel like me and you like that. The first time you look around and everyone, like when everyone's laughing, I don't like look around and like be like, I'm taking all the smiles in.
Yeah.
But when everyone's looking at you, that's when you're like, whoa, I have your guys' attention right now. And that's like, that's what you were saying when it's magical. That's the strive. Like doing stand-up is cool.
Like when you kind of like break the curtain of lights.
Yes.
And like you see like the faces.
Yes.
That you can't see like because the lights are in your eyes.
Yes.
When you break through that for the first time, and like, if you're, I'm not like I'm very much not a physical comedian.
Sure.
I'm staying and, I might pace around a little, but I'm like, I'm in like a 3-foot zone.
Yeah.
But like, so for me to like lean in like that is usually like a moment of emphasis on something or whatever. And you can break that and you look and it's like, it's dead quiet.
Yeah.
It's not that it's like, you're not bombing in that moment. It's dead quiet. It would be one thing if there were like 4 or 5 people talking or somebody like running a straw through some ice on their clinking their glass. It's nothing like that. It's an entire room of like total silence.
Yeah.
It's like, that's attention.
Yeah.
And that's like such a great place to be at.
I think so too. Cause it is even an open micer, the first, like the very first time you do stand up, there's a good chance you would get a laugh.
Sure.
It is so rare to know how to like touch heartstrings, and people have always talked about how they like the pop of it, they like the twist and doing that stuff, and you were like one of those guys who were like, I'm changing your like blood pressure.
Yeah, you're telling a story.
I'm altering how you're feeling. Like you're with me. I picture the story. I can picture when you talk about beating, when you punch that guy.
Yeah,
I remember I can picture that. Like I have like the place I picture it at.
Sure.
I have you guys walking out what I think your guys are wearing.
Yeah.
And that's when you get taken to another place. Yeah. That's cool.
It's because it's hard coded in us.
Yeah.
Stories are carried on because we as a species have survived.
That's why I love your art on your for your album.
Yeah.
The secrets, because it's like it's such like a story, like those books. What were those books called?
The Choose Your Own Adventure books.
The Choose Your Own Adventure books. It feels so like that, and it just that you really do. Like, you don't know where your stories are going. It's not like this big payoff to like, oh, and then I shit everywhere. It's not like it's not a cheap, you're not pulling it out just to pull out time. You're really pulling it out and you're like, oh my God, I feel for this guy. What's the fuck is about to happen? They're in the parking lot. And what's going to happen? And they're like, let's get the shit out of it. Yeah.
Like, and it's not structured. Like, I don't write it down.
No,
it's just like, man, I've credit my family again.
Yeah.
I was exposed to like storytelling and that kind of stuff, and communication in general at a young age. And like, I'm an excellent communicator, and
you really are, dude.
I've been like a good storyteller, even forever. I was always writing stories.
Yes. Well, you're a wild breed because and I feel like I have a lot of people like this in my corner. So maybe there are more people than this, but like all the people around me that like you're so. Some people are like, you know, like we grew up guys that like they could tell stories, but they couldn't listen to you for shit.
Sure.
They can't do anything.
Yeah.
You're one of those guys that's like, you're so funny. You can really listen to someone. I've talked to you on my darkest days.
Yeah.
You've opened up to me.
Yeah.
Through breakups.
Yeah.
And then we've also been the happiest, and we get to share that with each other.
Sure.
And it's weird. Like, it's almost weird that like, I wonder if there's times like, I swear to God, I'm just thinking about this right now. I wonder if there's ever a time that you wanted to roast me or I wanted to roast you because it'd be funny, but you're one of those guys that's like, we're comics and we would even know we're joking, but like, there's so many times we're hanging out and I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just the guy when we're hanging out, like every comic once you're like, look at this guy's fucking dorky shoes or something. And when I hang out with you, I just want to be like, I love you, dude. Good to see you. And it's like, you're like, it's rare to have that to where someone you're like, I don't even want to roast them to like be mean. And I almost think like our friendship deserves that, to be like, you're like, oh, I could like say something like that. But you're just such, I guess it goes back to, that goes back to the fucking roast, as like, everyone was like, what do we say? And you're like, okay, cool, you can call me fat. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna. So what else? How about I just pretend I'll make fun of JC. I'll put his hat on. You know what I mean? Like, whatever.
I credit like that with like, I mean, it's how I was brought up. It's my mom, you know.
She sounds so. I know. I think I met her a handful of times, like for like brief moments.
She's the best.
Yeah,
but like, I'm a child of divorce, and like my dad wasn't around much, and then I moved in with him in high school, and it was just like a constant like seeking validation in the world outside of my home life because it was so bad for so long.
Yeah.
So it was always like. I don't think I was ever the kid who was like, pay attention to me. But I think I was just always like a funny kid, and I liked making people laugh.
Well, you said your whole family kind of had these like moments together where you guys were like, we were doing
all the time.
So you know that where it's like I would like, it's like I had these bursts of like no one, and I'm like, notice that, hey, what's up? And it's like, so that obviously comes out. It's like that just kind of comes out who you are.
Sure,
but you do these things where you're like, oh, I just know how to be relaxed in a room and I don't have to like share these things. And you're also like, you came from music too. So you know the timing of music, and like, I know music is important to you. Like, we have many conversations about like, hey, have you heard this?
Yeah.
Have you checked out Zach Bryan? We like share that thing.
Yeah.
And that's important too, because some people some people are amazing at stand up, and they're like, oh man, in 1946 there was this guy, and they're like, they know the ins and outs of it.
Yeah.
And I think other people are like, no, I'm trying to do my thing, and it comes from like art and the bands you were in and the music that you've shared with me, and we've talked about stuff, and it's like even the music you share. We were listening to stuff earlier you showed me, and you're like, this guy's kind of emotional. You're like, yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, dude, and I like that. You're like, it has a good vibe, it has a good feeling, and I love that about you, that you have heart, because I feel like I like to do that too. I think I like to get down to the real stuff, but when you hang out with comics and you see that anxiety of like, we have to be funny, I'm like, you don't.
Just be yourself.
Just be yourself.
And I get that it's like,
be funny. I love when someone's killing. It's fun.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But you know, there's certainly like an obvious reason why somebody would like feel the need to be funny in a moment, especially in like a crowd of comedians, you know?
Yeah.
But you know, it's like, we're still people.
Yeah.
You know, and I have like, your ability to do stand up doesn't like make me judge you as a human being.
No.
Yeah, at all.
That's literally what I said the other day. I was like, it's like secondary. Like, if you're a cool person and if you're stand up, like if I actively think it sucks, I don't care. But if the other way is.
Yeah, exactly. Conversely. And it's like, would I want to be around you in my life, regardless of whether or not you're funny? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yes. Because that matters nothing to me.
And if not, sorry, I don't have space for you. Like it's easy to respect somebody for being good at something, but not liking them on an interpersonal level.
Yeah.
You know?
How does so like I know music's important to you because I also like because like what's weird about social media is sometimes it's such a problem, like you were saying, like when you just sometimes we'll be like scrolling on our phones.
Yeah.
But it's cool that like that you live so far away from me and then I can like see you a little bit. Like I can kind of like get a glimpse in like how at Hogwarts you can kind of like be like, that's Dumbledore standing in the fucking frame. Like you can kind of get a thing. But I always like, you'll share music. Like there's definitely times where I think I've clicked on the song or whatever, or we've talked about stuff. But like I'm curious because some people, how they listen to music is it's so different. Like how does music fit into your day? Because we've talked about so many things just as friends. But like for me, for example, like when I say like how does it fit? Like I wake up and if I can go for a walk, I will try to take in the day. But as soon as I can put in the music, and it's different all the time. But like that almost feels like how coffee does. Like how does music fit into like shit for you? Because especially since you used to play it, and I know it's like for us, it's like if someone was like comedy or music, I'm like, if one has to exist over the other one forever, maybe music because it's like the universal language. It's so beautiful. Yeah. But what thing do I like more? Yeah. I love the jokes, dude. But yeah, how does it fit for you?
You know, I recently got laid off of work, but I would listen to. That's what I would do during my day. You know,
yes.
Every now and then I would have like a YouTube video on or something. But,
yeah.
It was primarily just listening to music. It's crazy how much faster time passes when you're listening to something.
What is that? That like constant temp, like, that thing of like, it's like hitting the silence of time.
It's also probably like, you're probably not listening to like brand new music all the time. So it's like your brain is like subconsciously going, this song is 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And this song is 2 minutes and 12 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's just like going through the motions as like you're passing in real time. So yeah, it definitely helps.
Do you disassociate when you're listening to music?
Sometimes. I love it.
Driving and disassociate. Oh God.
I remember being like a brooding teen and hearing the Dookie for the first time.
Yeah, dude.
And being like fucking mind blown. Like this is different than like a lot of other stuff.
Is that doesn't have da-da? Is that is that on that one?
Yeah.
Dude, when that comes, sometimes when those things would come in, you're like, what?
Yeah, it's weird, like what effect. And I'm not saying that that's like the greatest album of all time. It's certainly a classic, but good album.
Oh yeah, dude.
But it's not like the greatest thing. But it's just I feel
my
like
musical taste. I feel like I would never I never try to be like. I think it's so weird to be like I like that shit more. Like I think I heard Tyler the Creator was talking about that. Like I'm like whatever. But like my musical taste, if someone was like, oh, what about that? They're like, you like them? I'm like, yeah, I'm not telling you, you know what I mean? Like I remember in high school being embarrassed of bands I liked.
Yeah.
And then once you stop, music is so much more fun.
And people talk about like being angry at Taylor Swift. It's like you're being upset at somebody for liking music that is engineered like to the millisecond to be like as appealing to you as possible. And
then it appeals and you're like, yeah.
It's just doing what it's supposed to do.
And I feel like for artists, and especially where we come from too, where it's like I can critique a thing, but I'm really bad at it. Yeah. But for me, like people are like, because like people talk about like a Taylor Swift or something like that, and I'm like, I don't know many of her songs, but I think she is incredible. You do that. You go sell out all over the world. Where a guy in another country is like, you have to come to our country. Yeah. It's like doing all that crazy shit is wild. But like, if you don't fuck with that, that's fine. But that's what I love. I wish people don't share it enough too, because then people start to like, you ever have like, that thing where you're like, oh, I'll play a song, then you play a song. For me, it always is like, here's a song I think and you really hook them in. And then someone else gives you a song and they hook you in. And then by the second or third song, it's like, okay, so this song's 14 minutes and you have to listen to this other song to understand this song. And then I'm like,
Constantine.
No. What?
It's Constantine.
It is
something corporate.
Yeah. It just goes so deep. But but no, that I love disassociating with music. Yeah. And do you listen? I can listen to a song 7 times in a day and it can be a song I've been listening to for years.
Oh man, I have. My most played song a couple years ago was the theme from the movie Christine, done by John Carpenter.
Wait, please.
Yeah, it's just a theme. It's like a techno movie theme song from the 80s.
I don't know what's that song. Can you sing it? Or
no, it's one of those. It's like, yeah. But it was because I would just sit there and hit play and I listened to it over and over and over and over and over. I was just on repeat. And I like to use music to put me in a state of mind, like if I'm writing about something.
Yes.
I write a lot of like very bizarre, weird shorts that there's all these weird things that take place in this small Midwestern town of no consequence. They're very dumb. It's where all of my ideas that I used to put into like the Lanolax Corporation podcast would go.
Well, you've told me about these before. I love, dude. Please talk about this, because you're also a guy that, like, when you tell me an idea you have, I'm like, are you making it already? And sometimes you are, and if you're not, I still can't tell the difference, because you have such. I wish I had as clear of a point of view, because we've sat down and talked about sketches, ideas, or whatever, and you'll tell me something. I'm like, that's great, and then I'm like, okay, so there's like a dirt bike, okay, and it's like whatever, and it's this like thing, and at the end, I'm like, as soon as I'm like explaining, I'm like, there's really nothing there, and you'll never say, you're like, yeah, but like you have really clear cut ideas that I'm like, yes, that's so cool, and I love. That's a very hard thing to have.
You know, we
so the town thing, I want to talk about that a little bit, because I really love. If you want to, you don't have to.
Sure. So we did the Lanolax Corporation podcast, which it was a daily improvised storytelling podcast.
Yeah.
So every day I would pitch you a hypothetical.
Yeah.
And based on how you respond and react, I would improvise the rest of the story.
Yes.
And we'd go back and forth. All the names were made up on the spot. All the places were made up on the spot. Everything was in the moment.
Everything
Outside of like a very, very, very bare bone structure.
Yeah.
And these stories, they were 30 minutes long. So I'm like sitting across from you telling you this story about what's happening based on your decisions. And then you die at the end in like a brutal, violent, or stupid way.
Yes.
It's very dumb.
Yes.
And we put out over 700 episodes of it.
Yeah.
And so I really like refined like the ability to like improvise.
Yes.
And I've never done a moment of improv.
Yeah.
But I'm probably one of the best improvisers you'll know, as far as like being able to like think on their feet just through
dude.
Like doing these over and over and over and over and over again for like such a long time frame.
You definitely have that thing. Some comics can do the joke the first time. I think there's definitely been times where I've been like, how many times you do the joke? You're like, yeah, it's like brand new.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's so developed.
Yeah. It just
Like,
sometimes it just falls out.
Yeah.
You know, and
for sure. You and Rafe have that too, where it's like, I'll watch you guys like change parts of jokes. I remember one time you came to town and did a joke that I'd seen you do before. And whatever, but I remember you like there was this part where you add getting your keys and like how you get it, and I was like, you didn't say that, and you're like, oh fuck, I didn't. And for me, I'm like, I remember at that point I was like, if I miss a chunk, everything's fucked. And you missed this little thing, and you're like, everything was still fine, it was good or whatever. And I feel like now I'm finding that fun place to have fun and be like, you can miss stuff because you're like, if you really just tell the story, you're not going to miss anything,
because it's a thing, amorphous blob, and you pull pieces out of it.
Yes,
but for the scripts, like all of those ideas that like my brain has been like wired to like keep searching for.
Yeah.
That's where they go. I just write like a 10-page short.
Yeah.
That is stupid and dumb and gross.
Yeah.
And like for me.
Yeah.
Like, these aren't for anyone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like thinking, oh, this is going to get made someday.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be cool if somebody ever did do something with them.
Yeah. You've never had that energy. Yeah. I remember when I came to Austin, you didn't smoke weed before you left.
I didn't smoke weed until I was...
You were on stage the first time you smoked weed, which is sick.
It was like just before I turned 30.
Yeah. You sent me the audio clip and I totally listened to it
somewhere.
Yeah, dude. It's such a good clip, dude.
Yeah.
Because I remember you sent it to me and I remember listening to it because I remember you came on and it was so like you because you were high, but you didn't do it like some people. I've had a guy host for me and got too high before the show and he's like, water almost came out of the mic. He squeezed it so hard.
Man.
And he goes, I'm so high. I go, that's the only thing I told him. I go, dude, just don't say anything. No one cares. Just do your set. You'll be fine. I was like, whatever. But you go up high and you still crush, dude.
Yeah, it was. I remember feeling like I call him the Shadow Man.
Yeah,
like there was like a version of me that existed, like just like one frame to the left, one frame down, and one frame back.
Yeah,
and he was like right there on my shoulder the whole time. Yeah, and I remember talking about like how long time had gone, and I looked down at the clock and I go, oh, it's been like 1 minute. It was like,
and it was really honest reactions, but you weren't, and it was cool because you didn't like you somehow, you just didn't freak
fun.
out. You had so much fun. I could tell in the audio recording too, and it's like
my boss, like my entire company I was working with was in the front row, and it was fun. Yeah, there's like I feel like again, I was nurtured as a comic to like trust myself and to be funny. And to like believe that I am funny, and I believe that I am funny. I think I'm funny in the moment. I think I'm funny when you give me a chance to prepare something.
Yes.
I enjoy being in the moment more. So that's like, if anything contributes to like my laziness, it's that. But like I was nurtured to just trust that I'm funny.
Yes.
So my favorite thing is like when your back is against the wall,
right,
and there's this reptilian part of your comedy brain that just drops out.
Yes.
A thing. I remember there's a show in Austin called Crapshoot, and it was the host audience members, comics, they'd all write down topics on a slip of paper, throw them in a hat, you draw a hat, you improvise your stand-up set, and you get 5 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. So you can skip a few. If you can't think of people would just fucking freak out. They'd get dining room, and they would whoa, next, and just like so upset.
Yeah.
And my goal was like, I'm taking one topic, whatever it is, I'm sitting in it the whole time.
I don't give a fuck.
And I'm seeing where it goes. And I did that, and the topic they gave me was your first car. And I was like, oh, okay, my first car was a 1984 Chrysler LeBaron. It was black. It was 2 doors. It had like a crushed red velvet interior. I remember when it died on me going down the highway. Like, and so I'm just like talking about it and just like cracking jokes, talking, it was a piece of shit car.
Yeah.
Total piece of shit. And then it's like, oh, my second car, this was a Buick Century. And this was, it was brown. And when we found it, it had super low miles on it.
Yeah.
And when we got it, it was because the lady's husband died. And we looked in the back, and I swear to God, in the back of you open the trunk and then you pull that panel up.
Yeah.
In one of the little cubbies was 2 packs of cigarettes and 2 porno tapes. And me and my stepbrother Rusty took the cigarettes, and I think we definitely split the porno tapes.
I was gonna say, if he took cigs over porn, I was like, dude, that guy had a nicotine addiction.
Well, nobody else
bro.
Smoked, so
sure, that's you're like, you can have those,
it,
but if you don't want at least a page of the porno mag, that's
sure.
so funny that you're like, no, dude, just give me these fucking Pall Malls.
So at this point, I'm talking about this car, right? And then it's like, man, I remember when I used to work at this Hardee's, right? And at the end of the night, we would take all the mashed potatoes and the peach cobbler, and we would get out and we'd sit them on the roof of the brown Bullet in my car, and we'd punt them into the road.
Right? Yeah.
Now I'm talking about working at Hardee's.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh shit, here's this story about me working at Hardee's.
Yes.
And then it was literally like bang, 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 bang,
yeah.
bang, bang, and here it is. It's done.
Yes.
And that's just like, it comes from like, oh, my back's against the wall. I have a topic that I'm talking about. Where do we go?
Yes.
And then it's like a pinball machine.
And
then
it's
you
so
find
fun.
the thing.
And it's so fun to get scared, because there's this thing about your brain where it's like, you were talking about being lazy, but like your brain's kind of lazy, where it's like, no, do the joke. And then as soon as you don't know what to do, it's just weird that your brain's like, oh, because it's so embarrassing. You're like searching your brain, and then your brain knows that you're like in front of people, and it's like this. And when you shock yourself in the audience and you find that thing, like if you, in the moment, one of the best things of all time, one of the best feelings of it's ever.
I don't think there's a single moment in my life that I won't talk about on stage. Historically,
I think so too.
I mean, I'm trying to think like the most humiliating moments of my life.
Yeah,
that I'm thinking through them, and I've 100% like spent a lot of time talking about them on stage.
You always would be like, yeah, I talked about this on stage or whatever, and I'm like, the only thing I feel like it's like, and maybe I'm wrong. I feel like, but it's like that are about you. But I'm like, I don't know, but like I would, if I could tell that like the audience truly is like, no, we're like if it was about sex and that whole audience is like, no, for real, like we like whatever, it's like we feel uncomfortable, then I might not want to tell that. But like as far as like for his embarrassment, oh dude, I'll like tell a stranger something about me, like, can't believe you're telling me that. I'm like, I can't either. Like I'm not, because to me it's like it happened. It's not, I'm not embarrassed by it. Like it's like it just happened.
And that stuff that's like really emotionally charged, like if you step back and look at it from like an unbiased third perspective, isn't a huge deal, and it's something that's like relatable to a lot of people. So I think like that kind of stuff is like a gold mine. And Kevin White once told me, he's like, every set you have doesn't have to be the Moth. And it's like, oh, okay, I get
that's that. Really cool that he said. That's a really good point.
And
yeah,
that is
you
like,
kind of do that.
But that is like,
not you, people, like we all do. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I think it's a valid criticism, in that sometimes like, what am I really chasing?
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, what am I really chasing? I'm chasing those small moments, those thoughts that are formed immediately and come out perfectly in perfect order, with a laugh at the end. Yeah, like those moments come from like, for me, those moments come from like very personal places. Yeah, and like the small details matter, and I think in order to like have a story worth digging into the small details, it's got to be really emotionally charged.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like, yeah, that's just how I've kind of, I'm not going to say how I've always been, but like I got to that point where that's like, I feel really comfortable writing from stage. I feel so comfortable. I mean,
For sure.
It's the only way I do it.
Well, you're so good at it, but you also let the thing be what it is. You're like, some people will try to make like a tree into like, it's like, oh, I whittled it into a man, and you're like, okay, but you're like, no, the tree already is. You just use the essence of the thing, and here's what it is. You don't try to make stuff up. You're like, it is inherently funny.
You use the tree to build the forest.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's not necessarily the other way around. Like,
yeah,
you could take moments that are like really impactful and important and event, meaningful to you.
Yeah,
and like, man, dig into that shit. Dig in, ask like, here's one thing. Every time I would tell a story, here's the secret sauce. I write the story out, just kind of like tell it. Here's what happens. Here's this happens, then this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens, right? And every space in between, then this happens, and this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. Mm-hmm. If you don't have stuff inside of a space, is anything being introduced?
Right.
Are you what are you telling? What information are you revealing to the audience for the first time? Is there anything that has to like be set up for the next section?
Yeah.
Are there any questions that are raised by what just happened? You can tell a story, and in the middle, somebody will go, "He wore what?" And now it's like, "Yeah, this guy wore this color shirt for this and it's insane." And now you're like 4 minutes deeper into the story, and the main arc is back here, and you got to find your way back to it.
Exactly.
You have to like, sometimes you have to reset.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to go, okay, so you have to like, it's like if you ever have to follow somebody who just totally crushes in a room.
Oh yeah.
You have to like take a moment to like let it breathe and like reset the crowd. You have to do that inside of a long story sometimes. If at least me. So I think it's all just like, do you have a compelling narrative that has a beginning, middle, and end?
Yeah.
You have people, places, things, ideas that are introduced throughout that narrative. Mm-hmm. Every single time you bring something in, you have an opportunity to make a joke about it. Yeah. And that's where your like joke craftsmanship provides a real opportunity to like insert something funny into this narrative that you and I both know is like, its value lies in like the story. It's not like,
if the heart of it's funny, you could it's just how you dress it up. You know what I mean? Like,
it doesn't even necessarily have to be. I mean, it should be funny, but like,
oh, I don't think so. Yeah, I think like, and I get that. Like, and I do. If you like jokes, totally. I love when I can't. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, this is so funny. I can't get a break in.
Like, I wish I could do that.
It's so fun. But like I always love like being able to be pulled into a moment and people like pulling stuff out, because I'm not really like, I don't like musicals. I'm not artistic about many things. Like I see paintings that I love and I'm like, oh, I like that, but I don't know what I like about it.
Yeah.
But with stand up, I appreciate, like I have such an appreciation for the whole thing, and it's just fun to do it. And it's like, when you can just pull out those little things and just being who you are, because then like eventually the journey is like, oh, how do I become a stand-up? And then when you're like, well, I am, and I'm kind of just myself anyways, that's when I noticed myself, like I would panic before a show and be like, I have some jokes, like, do I need to be right? Do I need a new joke now? And I would start to walk around. I just had this panic. And now I walk around and like, it's right. Like I have this whole thing right before I go on stage where I'm like, I'm like, I gotta take a shower. I get ready. I'm walking and I have time to walk to the show. And as I'm walking out, I try to be like, take this in. Cause it's like, it's not the show isn't the whole thing. That's the thing in a second. But like, that's what you get to do from life. You would bring all of this in there, and if you're not looking on the way there, I like wearing my headphones in places, but sometimes I try not to, because I'm like, you're gonna risk missing
something.
It could literally be your clothes. Watching someone like the other day, I had my headphones like in, but I was like, I'm gonna take them out. Yeah. And look, I watched a guy. He in St. Louis had a gun in his like pocket,
naturally,
but he had on gym shorts, so they were like sliding down.
Man,
and I would never have noticed that. What's up, dude? Have a good day, brother. But yeah, it's like all those like little things that you have to notice, and I try to find like the love in just being like, you're always in it. Even like you said, being on stage isn't separate from that. Like you're performing, but also what do you notice on stage? Like what things do you see and doing all that? But yeah, you're great at that. And I want to say this, like you had that freedom earlier, but something about the freedom you had or who you are, whether it was how you were raised, and helped out by art, or how your mom and your family. But like, I remember when you first moved to Austin, you didn't smoke weed. And then I come down there and you're like, oh, I did. Also, do you want to read the spec script that I wrote? I also have this other idea and this other stuff. And I'm like, oh, when I started smoking weed, I just started really like neglecting everything.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, I'm better at it. And it's like, you were working, you were doing stuff. And it's like, you're just like this anomaly of like being like how people are like, I'm a stoner and I'm lazy. You're like, yeah, I guess I did only write the one spec script. You know what I mean? Like I have people who will tell you, you ever someone be like, I'm gonna do that thing. I do that so many times. You're like a guy who's like, I did the thing. Would you like, I can send it to you right now. You know what I mean?
I wish I could tell you all of the examples of where I said like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then I fucking didn't.
We always do.
You know?
I actually, for this, literally this podcast is the first thing. I might have had a couple other things, but like I don't like secrecy. I don't, even if it's like not a secret. Like I feel like it's like if I have the idea and don't tell someone on the phone, I feel like I'm like withholding a thing, because we're always talking about, you know, with comics, you're like, how you doing? What are you working on?
Yeah.
But this was the first thing that I go, if you tell people about this, that thing, if it already feels like it exists, don't do that. Just do this. And just trying to not talk too much about the future and just being in the moment, like even on stage or whatever, like any of that stuff. It's like, if I'm going to go up, I want to have as fresh of a time as I can. Like the other day I was on stage and I was having so much fun. And at one point this guy had sunglasses on and like I put them on. And I remember there's a time where at the beginning when I started, you'd be like, of course, whatever you see. And then eventually be like, don't do that. You focus on the jokes. And then it comes back around to being like, you know what? I think this is funny. So I'm going to do this. And when it works, you're like, oh, cool. And there's no rules. There's no, hey man, don't pick out the guy's sunglasses up front. Like all this stuff, like it's the most freeing thing. So I think it's cool that you had art in your corner. And you also like were very sweet to be like, this is Bobby, and introduce me to him. So like I started getting work there, and like you cared about him, like fostering me, because it was a place that I got to go to be like, I do the alt rooms, I do this room, I get to come over to comedy, etc.
Yeah.
And try and meet people and try stuff.
What an environment.
It was like, such an environment.
To like start in and
what a fucking place.
And like, for those who aren't familiar, Comedy Etc. 2 was the second iteration of this club run by this guy, Art Veloff, in Fairview Heights, Illinois, which is like 10 minutes over the river, if that. So it's in Illinois, but it's pretty much St. Louis. And it was not like the A room in town. That was the Funny Bone. That they were the ones that were booking Bill Burr and shit at the time.
But I don't know. I mean, you say that, yeah, for sure. But like, I also remember Comedy Etc. I mean, they had like they had huge. I think they both did really well. I mean, am I wrong? I remember Dave Coulier. I remember seeing all these people I couldn't believe. Pauly Shore. Like,
it was like the big names were like big names
from movies.
They were playing the Funny Bone like the decade before.
Sure, it goes back and forth.
It was clearly like, because it's not in St. Louis. It's
right.
Desirable. So whatever.
I'm just saying that like I think Comedy Etc. was like, it was just a place that I remember being like, I didn't know about it, and so to know like, oh, well, this is here too, and this is all these crazy people.
The cool thing about it was like,
see.
Even though like it wasn't like filled with household names or like big time comedians, it was like the calendar was littered with guys who were pro comics. These people who've been doing stand up for decades. You know,
I'm just making sure it's still recording. I'm having so much fun. I just wanted to make sure we didn't get the battery in. This rules, dude.
But there's like there was a lot of like pro comics, you know, and for me to like. I didn't give a shit if it was Pauly Shore telling jokes or whoever, when like Gabriel Rutledge would come through, or like James Johan. There's a guy named Dale Jones who he's a fucking maniac. He is a live wire. He is constantly moving, and I've never seen anybody kill as hard wire to wire as a guy named Dale Jones, who was on like Last Comic Standing for like a snippet and murdered every second of 45 minutes. He was a machine gun. And he like the audience would be worn out. It was an incredible show. But that dude, I think he's probably played the Bone too. But like we got like a lot of comics who were like good at what they did. They weren't like there were some really funny people there, but they weren't always like the funniest. They certainly weren't the biggest names, but they were generally speaking like fucking cool. I mean, they're just there to hang out.
Gabriel Rutledge. Like
Gabe's great.
Dude, Gabriel Rutledge is like one of those guys that like I remember we did a show in the Ozarks, and I think you had maybe mentioned his name, so I kind of like knew of him. But we did this show together, and you just like, it's so cool when you meet a comic, because like, dude, sometimes you literally have to like show your like Boy Scout badges of all the things you've done before someone will even like look at you. And he's that thing we were talking about earlier where you're like 100% a human being before a comic.
100%.
100%. He's such a cool guy, dude. We scared we were on the road and we were the only two people staying in this really creepy hotel.
Yeah.
And I get off the elevator and I was not expecting him. He was not expecting me.
Yeah.
And we were both like, oh, hey man, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good show, dude. What did you see those people get scared? Like, dude, it was so funny. But yeah, he's like one of those guys that like you love. And there are like I honestly like a guy who like whenever they're kind and funny, they're those guys that you're always like I hope I know you forever. That's like those guys that you when you get to meet them, you're like, this is crazy you do this. Because like you said early on, it is cool to be like, I've seen that guy in a movie, but to see a guy kill. You're like,
dude,
okay, and this guy tours and stuff like that, and he's nice. You're like, it just feels like it feels like you're at the right spot. You know, you're at the DMV, and you're like, am I in the right spot? When you meet these people, you're like, I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
I did
feels
3
so
shows
good.
with a guy named Chad Thornsberry in 2010, and he was a pro comic, and he did great every single show, and he was nice as hell off stage. And I'll never forget the look on his face. I looked him in the eyes. The late Saturday show, I had just a great set, right? Late Saturday show, I'm emceeing, and he was featuring, and I go to bring him off stage, and I shake his hand, and he says to me, he goes, "When'd you lose him?" And then just like fucking walks on stage and just does his act, and it was like he was so funny and like so nice.
I love that,
and like you give people shit, and it's like. Even though it wasn't like the big room in town and it wasn't the A room, it was still littered with people who like tried really hard at comedy.
Oh yeah.
There were some really good comedians in there. There were some really fucking awful comedians in there.
Yeah.
More so than you would see at the Bone. And I think that was the cool part is like people from the Bone, like every weekend is somebody who's somebody, at least like regionally.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get people at et cetera who are nobody.
Yeah.
At anywhere.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes you get people who show up who are fucking whack jobs.
Oh yeah.
And I have so many stories of like those people.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, that's
like,
dude, some psychos, some
psycho
like
people.
And it's like, you're like, you don't get that in any other job.
No.
Really. Like these absolute monsters. They're monsters.
And then I moved from there to Austin where it's Cap City and it's like, oh, everybody even like is like the Funny Bone, but cranked up. This is like an A room nationally.
Yeah.
This there's not like an off week,
right?
Everybody in there's a killer. And it's like, you guys never got to like work with the people that I got to work with.
Oh yeah.
That are like lunatics.
You would like call me and tell me guys you'd worked with or whatever. Like, dude, can I tell you about this fucking guy?
And it's
so funny.
But it was also like,
I would love
that. That was like a sort of embodiment of what that club was about, because there were some comics at Comedy Center who came through the open mic scene that were really funny and inventive and cool and like get it and are on their shit. And then you just get the fucking absolute nut jobs.
Oh yeah.
There's a guy who used to go up there. His name was Larry Pogan Pole, right? That was his name. And his whole bit, he would have like a fucking poster board like you would get for a goddamn science fair.
Yeah.
And he would write the names of he would write down movie titles on there, and the word that made the movie a porno title, he would cover up with a slip of paper, and he would like tell a joke, and then he would be like, Harry, and then he would lift up the paper, and where it said Potter before, it says Twatter or something.
Yeah.
And he would just do that
yes.
for like 4 minutes.
And I love that.
And it was just like, this man is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Fucking insane.
It's
and
like,
they weren't good, and they weren't good either.
No.
They were not good jokes.
No.
They were bad.
But just like some things are too dense or something like that, if it's like too much of a good, like if you just watch people kill, like that's what you want. Well, that's why there's 3 people, but there's a reason for an open mic. They give you a bunch. And when you watch people early on, like this girl Liz that does like I live at her house now. I say that's so weird because it's weird because if you're like, oh, I live with Liz, they're like, oh, is that your girlfriend? You're like, no. But then also if I say like I just like live in the back of this girl's house, like, was everything okay? I'm like, but it was a guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so I've known her for a long time. We've been friends for a long time. In their day, she was like, yeah, we've been going to trivia. We've been doing this thing with like some girls, but she's like, we want to find something new to do. I go, you ever gone to like an open mic? She goes, no. I go any club, just go, because it's between $3 to $5. It's
very cheap.
It's so cheap, dude. And so go ahead and go out, and you see people, and like you see really good, and that's awesome. And then when you see some of these fucking guys, I was talking with Jeremy S. Like he said, a guy showed up in like armor, and we were laughing about the idea of like what was that guy's thought process, what like incited that. You see all these big.
There's a guy who come up to the Funny Bone open mic, and he would read the diary of who's the president from Missouri? I can't think of his name.
Grant.
He would dress up like Harry S. Truman, and he would read from the diary of Harry S. Truman.
What?
For like 4 minutes. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, like I'm like not getting on.
Yeah.
I'm not getting on stage. But this guy dressed up like Harry Truman.
Yeah.
Is right in the middle of the fucking show.
Right, which does, and that pisses you off. But there's times where you don't make it on, but when you are on and you're watching that guy, you're like, I'm kind of glad they let some of those guys on. But people, and that goes across sometimes literally, you know what's funny about like how, you know, then people are like, how do they escape from jail or something like that? And they're like, oh, there's just this crack here. When you're signing up, there is just a loose thing where all of a sudden someone will go up with like a boom box and like a thing of mustard, or someone will have a panic attack on stage, or someone's like spraying a chemical.
Yeah, because you don't need anything.
Yeah, people don't know anything.
There's no barrier to entry to becoming a stand-up comic.
Which that's why it's like weird to like know that it's like a dog off of a leash. It's like if your owner somehow gives you the freedom, you know how to like stay in the yard, to do all these things in that world, because it's like you're free, but you have to kind of stay in this area where some people are just like, dude, you got to keep this guy. You have to show this guy, otherwise he's going to go so wild it's not going to make sense. Yeah, like when you have to tell someone after a show that you can't say that thing that you're like, you can't even say that in public. Yeah. So you thought you could say that, like that was just
into a microphone.
It's not even. It wasn't freedom of speech. It was fucked up. And so whatever. But like all that stuff happened. So finding that like freedom and still like sticking to like staying in that world of not getting like just trying to do it to do work or anything like that. Like you always had that. And I think it's cool that you had that freedom. And yeah, like you said, like all the people you would see and you got to go. And then like, cause didn't art like, how did you get how did early on you got road work from like certain comics you would go on the road with? Or was it like, cause art would vouch for you? But I remember like you would tell me stories early on that sounded like a comic that like, at least for our group, like anyone around, that's why you moved away like when early on where all of us were like, we're still trying to do shit here. But you were like, I'm staying in hotels, like I'm doing all this stuff. Where like for us, it was like, how do you get a hotel? Does that come with it? What's a rider? Like you don't know any of this shit. What was that process like of like starting to go on the road and shit?
So I would get some stuff from Art because you know he's got booking agents who work for the club, and they had something that they needed a feature act for. They throw it my way, or other people too. So a lot of it, well, not a lot of it, but some of it came from Art. But there was a lady out of Ohio who did a lot of booking all over the Rust Belt. Yeah. Her name's Carol Pennington, and Carol booked VFW halls, pool halls, Knights of Columbus halls, Mexican restaurants, haunted hotels, like Ramada Inns, like you name it. Yeah. If they were willing to do comedy there, by God, she'd fucking get you somebody. Yeah. Comedy on the Midwest, when I was starting out, was basically Carol telling me there's $150 in a bucket. That bucket is in the middle of Indiana.
Oh, you go to the moon to get it if you had to. Yeah.
We'll give you a hotel. Yeah. You want? Okay, go get it. And that's what it was. And it was like, but it was also, so those rooms are like off the grid.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
They're not like part of the normal comedy club circuit.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's like, because it's like, it's one thing that's like, I guess it's part of the training, but you don't really need to do it. Like if you didn't, I just think it's one of those things that it makes you so, it's like doing ayahuasca of comedy. It. I did a show at a YMCA recently for kids who had just graduated, and they're like, you have to do clean. And I was like, totally. And it was fucking awesome. Sometimes they're not, but because there was parents there and adults, and everyone had fun. They rebooked me for like, we're like, we'll just have an adult show like at this place. But when you book those shows off the grid, because you never know, it's like clicking on a scary movie. You're like, is this going to scare the shit on me? I don't even know what this is about. And you show up to these VFWs and all that. Yeah. But you have like to tell me, dude. Oh my God,
I'll give you one.
Give me some.
I was doing a show in Grand Haven, Michigan, at like an Eagles Lodge or some shit. So normally shows have a host, a feature, and a headliner. So there's three guys. More time the further you get into the show. This show had a host, kind of a feature, and two headliners. So the whole plan was there was me, this guy Dean, and then this other guy, his name, I think it was Jeff. Yeah, it was Jeff Blanchard. And out of, who fucking knows? Oh, I think he's an Ohio guy, actually. Okay. And Jeff Blanchard was one of these guys who was like, he worked for this lady a lot, and he was kind of like big swinging dick with this lady. He got all the primo, he got a lot of primo shit from her.
Yeah.
And so we go to this it's an Eagles Lodge, and the guy who's running the thing is, I loosely refer to him as the MC. So here was the plan. This guy, I don't know what his name was, Jim. We'll call him Jim. Jim was gonna basically go up, introduce the evening, and he was gonna tell what's going on. He might tell a couple of jokes, and then he's gonna bring me up to start the show with 20 minutes, right? Then I was gonna bring up the first headliner.
Yeah.
The first headliner was gonna come off, and I was going to close the first half of the show, right? There was gonna be like a 15-minute intermission. Then this Jim guy was gonna come back on, bring me up again, so that only for the purpose to bring up the headliner, and then the show was over. And they're like, yeah, they're serving food like muscatoli and salad and breadsticks and shit.
Oh, good mess.
That's
like, a good Midwest meal.
Midwest. It was it's funeral food,
Yeah, I always say that too.
Yeah.
Why it's only Anyway, God,
they can make them in large quantities.
Oh God.
So they gave us that, and they gave us a drink ticket. The drink ticket was a wooden coin, and it had an eagle on it, and it said whatever, Eagles Lodge, Grand Haven, Michigan. And so the guy goes on stage, right? Jim goes on stage, and he goes, all right, ladies and gentlemen, Aaron. And he just fucking brings me on. He just like doesn't do the shit he said he was going to do.
He just did what you would do in the back of a club into a microphone, like on stage, just and brought
I'm
you
like
up.
On my phone thinking I have like 3 or 4 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. Like at a baseball game, if they're like, and next up is Albert Pujols. But instead the guy comes and stands right where he's going to bat. And then he goes and he just walks away. Like you could just do it from back there.
So I like run on stage, right? It's like, not even dark. They're pulling the fucking shades down.
Yeah.
Like,
why does that feel so weird? It's like, sometimes it's kind of beautiful to do it as the sun goes down. If it's like outside, there are so many beautiful, but it's when it's black outside, when it's dark outside it's like you feel like you're in another place.
It would be like us doing
good.
comedy right now.
Exactly.
It's like there's light coming through the window.
It feels weird.
It was weird. It's weird. People aren't even seated all the way. There's like a buffet line.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what the fuck? And I eat shit so bad for 20 minutes. And I tried all the tricks. You know, I was flirting with guys. Like I was doing it all, right? Anything to get over in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And
dude.
I was doing all of it, 20 minutes, and I just fucking ate shit. And so I brought up Dean, who's like very high energy. Whatever, he like whips them into a frenzy, and he has like a good set.
Oh my God.
I'm sitting outside the showroom, and I am just like, I just fucking bombed as hard as I bombed maybe ever.
Okay. And
I'm just sitting there dissociating, right? I'm just sitting at this chair, just staring, and I'm staring right into the women's bathroom. I'm staring at the door. And as the door is like opening, I'm just like across the aisle, like just totally defeated. And these women are coming out, and I'm not looking at it. I'm just
dead
like,
face staring.
I'm just sitting there. And then people are coming up to me, and they're like asking me to get their coats because I'm sitting next to the coat check.
Yeah.
And so I'm like handing people coats.
Yeah.
And I had to go up, and they do the intermission. People just walk right by me. Nobody says a goddamn word to me.
Yeah.
I just sit there, and I go back up. Jeff Blanchard, and I bring Jeff off at the end, and it was just like one of the worst bombs I ever had. But I kept the token. And I put it in my wallet, and I sat on it every day. And it was like a hard fucking wooden token.
Yes.
I knew it was there all the time.
Yes.
And then it eventually broke because I'm a fat person.
But you kept that as like a token. It's like that thing of like I'll never forget how bad that night was.
I kept it there until it broke.
Yeah. And sometimes you need that. Remember, it's funny because I think I wonder if I threw it away, but I think I had it for a minute. I had a bomb at like a place where they gave you like, here's a free drink. Yep. And I kept it for a while. And yet you just like those things that you're just like, oh, that bomb was so bad. And
so bad.
Yeah, a lot of times if VFW,
that's the cops coming for how bomb that.
Yeah, how bad that joke was. Yeah, dude. But dude, I mean, I always love. Anytime we've ever talked, I feel like you always make me feel better about like where I'm at in life and everything. Like you make me feel seen better than like I'm not kidding you. I can't think of a family member better. Like you have like I feel close to like you, Briggs, Rafe, Tina. Like there's people that I have in my life. Like you're always a guy that like it's wild that I've never even when I've caught you on what would be a bad day, your demeanor's always the same. There's always this thing of like, yeah, like you said, you're like, I lost my job, and then you'll be like, how are you doing? Yeah, I know that thing with you and that doesn't look so good with you and your parents, but you also maybe I get that, but think about this, and I'm like, you're right, like you're just a guy that like you're really here to help, and I don't feel like you ever have any ulterior motives. And it's just like a beautiful friend to have, as someone that that's just in your corner, because it's a rare, beautiful thing. And like I love you. You're always such a sweet guy, dude. You're amazing.
That. I'm fortunate to have been raised the way I was, and I've just kind of been the same person.
Yeah.
I like never grew up out of it. I was just I like being nice.
You've always been the same way, but it doesn't feel stagnant. It's not like you don't seem like a guy trapped in time. You seem like just a person who's just like you that this whole life thing is not going to end, and you're just like, I'll just keep moving forward and doing this stuff and seeing the best in it. And you always make me feel happier whenever I'm low, and anytime you're low, you will confide in me, which I like, because sometimes there are people that will like listen to your sadnesses but won't ever share too.
Yeah.
And I always appreciate when someone will tell you, because it makes you feel good that you can like talk to them, and like we've known each other for so long. I could not imagine not having you in my life, man. I love you very much. You're so sweet. Dude, give me a hug. Love you, brother. Dude. Oh my God. Yeah, that's it. That's the podcast. I will cry later because you're the fucking best guy. I can't. I'm gonna know you forever. Love you, buddy.
Love you.
Have a good night. Bye. Oh, dude, it was almost 2 hours. Fuck yeah, dude.
Oh wow.
Oh, I love that.